Hey everyone, it's Joel from 8400 Lights. And today I thought we would give you a quick behind the scenes tour of some of the new props that we've created for this year's light show.
This is the east side of the front yard, and here I have another one of those small pixel trees that I converted from just single strand LED lights over to pixels. This was new 2 years ago with 12 strands, and for this year I added 2 more strands to make it 14 strands, just because I'm trying to make use of connection points on this base, and the base has 15 connection points, which is a really odd number, and with 12 strands it just left a couple of gaps, so I upgraded it to 14 strands, and it just looks quite a bit more full and gives some really nice patterns. This is one of 2 new Tune 2 signs that I added for this year's show. These are basically 3x3 P5 matrix panels that I built this custom case for, and drive these using a Raspberry Pi with a color light card. Pi, of course, running Falcon Player. And then again built the stand for this. And because of the heights of these, I ended up adding these support wires, support strings on both sides, because these are big enough that the wind can actually blow them down. And this is the back side of the unit. I've got a little door here that I can open up and access the interior. And here's what the inside looks like. We've got our power supply, again 5-volt panels, all the different panels. The panels are all fused. We've got the color light card over there on the left, and then you can see there's the network cable for the color light card. It actually goes right down into one of these legs here and then comes out here for its data connection cable. It's a nice way to hide that particular cable. Now for these, this year I have the Pi controller sitting elsewhere on the network, but I think I'm going to move it into the panels because I found out these color light cards do not take a specific IP address, so they work via broadcast, not unicast, and that did cause a few problems with my network. So I think I'm going to move that Pi controller into this case here, and that will also give me the ability to control these signs independently, because I have 2 of these, one here in the front yard and one in the backyard. But that'll be a next year's project. Over here in this bin I have the Falcon controller that controls my leaping arches and my 2 pixel trees. One of them connects here, and then I have a remote that drives the other pixel tree on the west side of the yard, along with a bunch of networking gear. Again, this is some of what I had to do because of the color light cards and the new Tune 2 signs. And then in the lower left here you can see this is where I have the Raspberry Pi, where it sits, and it has 2 different network cards on it, so that way I created a separate network just for the color light cards, so that traffic does not impact my main network. And then the other thing that I did this year is, because I have this hardwire control cable that runs from this bin here, and it runs up and across the house and over to the other side of the yard to drive the remote for the other Pixel tree. I decided to take advantage of that for my Light-O-Rama signals as well, and built these custom adapters here that split that cable that runs across into LOR, and I labeled it DMX. It's not really DMX, but it's the signals for the Falcon controller's remote, so I can multiplex and share this cable. So these have been really nice. Again, these remotes, it's not DMX, so that did cause a couple of issues, because these remotes can drive up to 4 outputs, and it uses 2 wires or 1 pair on an RJ45 per output. So by using 4 of the wires or 2 pairs for the LOR signal, I lost 2 outputs on my remote, but that's okay for my case because I only need 2 outputs anyway, or 2 ports anyway, so that worked out just fine. Now in this bin I have a standard LOR controller on the bottom there underneath, along with the power supply for this Pixel tree. And again, wanted to take advantage of all the wires in these control cables to send my LOR control signal across that master wire that goes across the top of the house to drive my Pixel trees on the other side. So built, again, this specialized splitter here, and basically what it does is it just allows me to loop the LOR control signals in and out across this single wire, which then runs back to that other control box, which then sends it again across that way and down to a control box on the west side of the house. This is the west side of the front yard for the display. And back over here, our control cable comes in from the other side of the yard. This is the one that we multiplexed. So we have another multiplexer here that splits it back out into my LOR signals and my signals for my Pixel controller. And that goes off that way. Here is my remote for my Pixels. And this is a remote to that Falcon controller on the east side. And this drives my leaping arches on this side, as well as my Pixel tree. Here's my other Pixel tree. Again, this is like the one on the west side that I had converted over 2 years ago to use pixels from just some standard LEDs, and started off with 12 strands, upgraded that this year to 14 strands. So this is just like the other Pixel tree in the front yard. New last year were these floodlights that I placed around the base of this tree and one other tree here in the west part of the front yard. These trees used to have lights all the way up and into the branches, at least this one did, but had a lot of problems with squirrels chewing on lights. So I converted the trunk of the tree just to have 8 channels of lights on that, and then put floodlights around the base to shine up into the tree itself. And this is the other tree in the front yard that I have these floodlights on. I have not put lights on the trunk of this tree, again because of squirrels would chew them. They seem to leave these floodlights around alone. And this was done as part of the show 2 years ago. So in the backyard, I converted my 3 large mega-ish trees, these are about 10 foot tall, from just having regular lights on them. I had 8 strands in a spiral pattern and 8 strands in a Z pattern, and converted these over to pixels 2 years ago. And that worked rather well. They were very nice, but I decided that the size of them with 12 strands just wasn't looking very full. So this year I added another 12 strands onto each tree. So each tree has 24 strands of pixels, with each strand being 41 lights, I believe. One unanticipated thing I didn't expect is the frames of these are a PVC frame that worked rather well before, but when I went to having 24 strands of pixels on them, it really puts a lot of stress on the PVC frame, and you can kind of hopefully see here how that's kind of bent out. So I have a hunch that I'm going to have to rebuild the frame for these for next year. Now the other thing is, these are 5-volt pixel strings. I tend to like 5 volts a little bit better than 12, although with 5 volts you have to do a lot more power injection. 12 volts might have been a little bit better for this particular application, but it is what I used. So at the top of these, I'll come up and get an angle of this here. At the very top of these, I put a fuse block and do my power injection up at the top there, and then down in this case is where I have my power supplies and controllers. So again, here I have some more power distribution blocks, as well as a power supply, and then these 3 trees are actually run off of this remote right here. And then I have underneath this is another case with just a couple of power supplies that I feed up into this top unit. And I'll tell you, going from 12 strands of pixels to 24 strands of pixels makes a huge difference in this. This here is my cube prop. I've had this prop now for a couple of years. It's basically just tubes of pixel strings. There's 25 pixels currently per tube, and there are 6 rows of 6 tubes, and it has some very cool effects in it. This is controlled here out of this box. Here's this controller here. Using a Falcon pixel controller for this, and then I use two remotes off of this Falcon controller, one for my Mega Trees and one for the pixels that I have on my deck railings. New last year was the pixel lights that I added to my spiral stair railing on my deck here. Comes up like this, and then also onto the top of the deck railing here as well. So it goes that way, all the way over, and then back the other side over here. And these just used to be standard LED lights that I had wrapped and split into 8 segments and converted these over to pixels. These have pixel strips inside of them, 60 LEDs per meter, which gives a lot of cool effects. And they are controlled off of this remote here that is connected down to the Falcon controller that I use for my cube prop. Again, I've got a power supply here, power distribution block, the remote, and then there's another power supply underneath that feeds up to this as well. So I've got plenty of power. And here's just another shot of my spiral staircase. This is the second Tune 2 sign that I built new this year. It sits out in the back of the yard. Again, add some supports to keep it from toppling over in high winds, but these have worked out really well. One new thing for this year's light show, fairly minor thing, but it helps with setups, is I rebuilt all of my cables that drive my floodlights to use this style of connector. Before, I tended to use the little 4-pin JST connectors, and while I found they went together very quickly, after about a year or two, had a lot of problems with them holding tight connections and not allowing electricity to pass through them. So ended up just go ahead and replacing them with these screw-on connectors here, and this should work a lot better.
I hope you enjoyed that quick behind-the-scenes tour. If you did, please watch our other videos on our YouTube channel, 8400 Lights. Subscribe and hit that like button. Thanks.